So once you have your value identification statement, and it's more like statements, so it's multiple activities and projects that you might be working on, now comes the toughest part of the engagement, which is to schedule time with your boss. What we're talking about in many ways initially is very intangible. You're calling your boss to say, hey, thank you for the performance appraisal that I recently got, and the feedback that you gave me was terrific. I'd love to have another conversation with you where we set all that aside and we specifically talk about the value that I currently provide and that I want to provide at our organization. And some bosses will be open to that and say, sure, sounds great, and others just may not. And so you, as a business person in your organization trying to take over the driver's seat, you need to be optimistic that this is going to happen at some point in the near future, and you need to be persistent, because bosses can also be somewhat avoidant, and they may reschedule meetings or not be available, etc. Or you go in to have the value identification conversation with them, and they turn it into projects that you're working on conversation, and you don't end up talking about anything that you thought you were going to be talking about. So it's very important that you first schedule time with your boss. And in some ways you want to schedule it in advance, right? So you want to go out a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, so that they have time between now and then to prep for it. The second thing that you might do is send them your value identification exercises. Say, hey, one of the reasons I want to meet with you is to talk about me and how I can provide more value into the organization. I'd like you to see the product of some of the work that I've done and that I've checked with peers and colleagues on, so that you can look at it in advance and be better prepared for our conversation. Send that out, a couple of weeks in advance in preparation of that meeting. So when you get into the meeting, you want to remind your boss why you're meeting and ask that you devote the time that you have to this topic of value generation, value creation. If there are other things that they need to talk about, we could do that at the end, but what I first want to do is talk about this particular area initially, and this typically will take multiple meetings. So this isn't going to be one meeting where you go through it all. No meeting ever lasts as long as you thought it would. If you schedule an hour, you'll only get 45 minutes. If you schedule 45 minutes, you only get a half hour, right? They have a way of cutting back time. But you want to go through the documents and see if it resonates and connects with your boss. And it either will or won't, or they'll have ideas or suggestions or think that you missed something, etc. But the key thing that you want to do is ensure that you create next steps that your boss can do or that you can do to help you get closer to where you want to be. So once you've completed the conversation with your boss, there's 2 really important things that you need to do. One is you need to thank them. So within 24 to 48 hours, either stop by their office, and raising your visibility is also about being seen more in some respects. So get out of your office and go and say, hey, I just wanted to stop by and tell you the conversation yesterday was fantastic. I really appreciate your time and I'm really excited about what we talked about. And then secondly, you want to send a recap. So recaps are very important because in communication, not everybody hears the same thing. And so recap is a note to your boss thanking them again for their time, but also here's what I heard and here's what I'm going to work on. And then ask them to respond and say, I'd love to know if this is what you heard and thought, or is there anything else I should do that I missed in this particular experience. But make sure that you follow up with your boss and ensure that this is step 1 of a process, not just one conversation.